Do you guys consider Kobe the greatest Laker ever?
No.
No?
No. Is he
I'm saying build on it. Like, I mean, this is something that your opinion, I think, would be nice to hear.
I just don't think Kobe's the greatest Laker ever when you have a guy like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's got to be considered the greatest Laker ever. How is he not?
I mean, I don't think there is a clear-cut greatest Laker of all time. It's like the case. I look at the Lakers pantheon of superstars kind of in the same category you would put the Yankees in. I don't really think there's a right answer on that.
Magic Johnson never won a championship without Kareem. Just saying that too. So I mean, it's not like, and Kareem did win before Magic got there. Okay. Plus Kobe had Shaq for a lot of his championships. Without Shaq, Kobe doesn't win those years.
Yeah, but Kareem also doesn't win the years without Magic, without him. And let's not forget, Magic Johnson actually filled in at center in his rookie season when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar couldn't play in Game 7. So,
but his career also got cut short. That's another reason that I can't.
But Magic Johnson's career didn't go past 32 because of AIDS. Oh, are you talking about Jabbar?
No, I'm talking about Magic Johnson.
Okay.
I can't consider Magic Johnson the greatest Laker of all time. Although he might have been if he was able to play throughout an entire career.
First of all, he wasn't even one I was going to put in there. I think you could put Magic in the top 10, but I think if you're going to look at top 5 Lakers, I would put Jabbar in that category. I think you could put Wilt in that category. Jerry West has to be in that category, though.
Well, Pixel Junkie in our chat room is saying he believes Jerry West is the greatest Laker of all time.
I was just going to say, he's one of the guys considered top 5 greatest NBA players of all time. He's on the NBA logo.
He is the NBA logo.
That's right. He is the NBA logo. So I think you have to throw him in that argument. At the very least, he's in the top 5, and I think Kobe belongs in that top 5 argument, too. He's got his 5 championships. You can debate all you want. He doesn't win the first 3 without Shaq. All right, but without him, that team is not as good either. So, you know, it was a conglomeration. Shaq was still dominant at the time. Kobe basically proved that he could win without Shaq winning his 2 championships, though. So,
well, look, you're not going to find a great player that's ever won an NBA championship that didn't have other good players on his team.
That's right.
You can't name me a single one. Just can't. It's just impossible to do. Every great player had other really good 2 great players on their team when they go win NBA championships.
I mean, I think Jordan came the closest to doing it without a real supporting cast because he did make all those guys better. But even them, they had Scottie Pippen, and they had arguably the greatest rebounder of all time in Dennis Rodman. And before that, they had Horace Grant, who was able to pull his weight. So he's the closest, I would say. But other than that, he had great players too.
Yeah, and it's because Pixel's. I can't. Pixel is pointing out the simple fact of the matter is that every single NBA jersey you wear,
that's right,
has a picture of Jerry West on it technically.
Yeah.
And I really have a hard time trying to argue with Jerry West as the greatest Laker ever for the simple fact is the only thing I have when it comes down to knowledge of Jerry West is watching old videos. And of course, they're going to just show you highlights of this guys. When I had an opportunity to watch, Kobe play. I had an opportunity to watch Magic play, and I do think some of it's a generation-based opinion. And when it comes down to Jerry West, look, the man is simply a founder to what the game of basketball became. He was a great all-around team player. He wasn't just a guy that scored points or a guy that just got assists or a guy that... He was a great all-around basketball player. I know that about Jerry West. Mm-hmm. But I also, to me, when I consider guys the greatest ever, to me, part of that conversation has to be, can you play during any generation? Can I put you in any generation and you still are able to be one of the best players on the court? And I don't think if you put Jerry West with today's point guards, I don't see how he physically could handle them. Jerry West was 160, 70 pounds, 5'8".
Yeah.
Like he would, I physically don't look at Jerry West and say to myself, I could put you in today's NBA and you still would end your career as one of the greatest ever. You know what I mean? Like where you could take Will Chamberlain, you could take Kareem, you could take Magic, you could take Larry, you could take Michael, you could take Dr. J, you could take this guy, you could take that guy. and put him anywhere.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but in terms of that, I don't think Jerry West is simply considered one of the greatest because of the era he played in, though. He did kind of revolutionize the game in a lot of ways. So, I'm not going to argue with that. I didn't know he was 5'8", truthfully. So I'll give you that.
Jerry West was not a big man at all. But, I mean, I could be wrong with the 5'8", but I know he was he wasn't some, Russell Westbrook, he wasn't some 6'2", 6'3" guard, 210 pounds.
I think he was more of a shooting guard type than a point guard type when he played.
Jerry West?
Yeah, I believe so.
I don't know.
I could be wrong on that. But I always thought he was more of a shooting guard.
There's a good chance of it. I'm not 100% sure. I thought Jerry ran point.
I thought Jerry ran point, too. I could be wrong, too.
Well, I'm Googling Jerry West.
I was going to say go to Wikipedia.
Yeah, I will check out Jerry West. I got you. I mean, the man, look, won an NBA championship, NBA Finals MVP in 69, 72, 14-time All-Star, NBA scoring champion 70, 10-time All-NBA first team, 2-time All-NBA second team, 4-time NBA All-Defensive team, NBA All-Defensive second team. Not to mention he also won NCAA Final Four Most Valuable Player. I mean, he did. Look, the guy arguably was one of the greatest players ever. There's no question about it. He averaged 27 points a game, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists for his career. I mean, that is a pretty impressive resume. No question about it. But like I said, to me, when I look at guys, I make that judgment of greatest ever, the most important thing is, can he play in every single generation of basketball? And I think Jerry West could play. I just don't know how would you put him up in that, greatest ever in every generation that you put him in.
And also, the game has changed a lot over the last 30 years, so you do have to take that into consideration. 6'2", 175 pounds.
Okay, so he was taller than I thought he was. That 6'2" is much different than 5'8", especially in the basketball game. 175 pounds though, that's a light man at 6'2", that's for sure. All right, so I don't think you have a, how do we put this? I don't think you have a clear-cut answer. I don't think there's a real hardcore right or wrong.
No, I agree.
See, I disagree completely.
You do? You think
I still think it's Kareem.
You think no matter, so if you put Kareem versus Wilt, you think Kareem dominates Wilt every day?
Not every day, but I think they're...
Yeah, because
if you look at greatest centers of all time, you can't help but put Jabbar at the top of the list. How,
Well, listen, you got to remember, they played each other during their careers, and there wasn't always a clear-cut winner.
It wasn't always a clear-cut winner, but a lot of people forget. And listen, you're not going to find a bigger Wilt Chamberlain fan than myself, believe it or not. I love Wilt. I think he is one of the top 3 players of all time. But I think he is a better player overall, even though most of his career was played against smaller guys a foot shorter than he was. I still consider him probably the greatest player ever.
Well, you got to remember, both of them were kind of the first big men. It was it was Bill Russell. Before them, it was George Mikan.
To go back to the topic, though, of greatest Laker, I think Kareem is the greatest Laker because he spent his whole time there. He started out when he was Lou Alcindor out in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he followed them to L.A. He won multiple championships. As far as greatest Laker goes, I find it hard to really sit back. I mean, listen, there are other great Lakers. There's no doubt about it. But in my mind, it'll always be Kareem. And I just don't – I see it pretty clear-cut in my mind.
Okay.
I just think a lot of people don't like him because of his attitude. He wasn't a media-friendly guy. He wasn't a guy who was shaking hands and kissing babies.
Well, I just think my response to that is I don't like the way the Lakers kind of distance themselves from him after his career. I mean, you look, they just built the one thing to honor him 20 years after his career ended. I do think he deserved more recognition than that. I'll give you that.
Well, Eric pointed out, one of the biggest things with Kareem was that he he cared about basketball. He didn't care what you thought of him. He didn't care if you were his friend. He didn't care about developing a friendship with you. He didn't look at ownership and said, I really hope that when I retire, we can be friends and I can maybe work for you. Like, he didn't care about that. Kareem went out and played ball. When he was done playing ball, he went and played had some kung fu with, Bruce Lee, and he did his thing. He wasn't worried about being friends with people. He wasn't. And you know what? And people will say the same thing about Jordan. Jordan didn't care about being your friend on the basketball court. The difference was Jordan was easy to market, great. I mean, he was willing to be a market product, but a lot of that's credited to Nike and the difference in the NBA when Jordan came in and when Kareem was playing. But the simple fact of the matter is Kareem worried about basketball. Yep. That was it. He didn't care what you thought of him. He went out there and he busted his ass and he did what he had to do to win basketball games and be considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest centers to ever play the game. I do want to say, Pixel's picking on me for riding the fence on, who's who's my favorite Laker of all time. And I guess it's not fair for me to ride the fence if you're going to name a guy. And,
well, I was kind of riding the fence too, so don't stop now.
Well, yeah, I think it's fair though. If I got to pick a guy and I'm going to sit here and think about it and pick a man, I'll personally just go with, I like Magic. I've always loved Magic. I've always loved his personality. I've always loved how he played the game of basketball. He just had so much fun and yet was so damn competitive at the same time.
Do you also think that you picking Magic has anything to do with the fact that you actually got to watch him a little bit when you were growing up? I mean,
I guarantee you that has an effect on my opinion.
See, I never watched, obviously, Kareem because he was just not around when I was that young, or even when he was in the 80s. I was too young to remember him. But from the stats, from all the videos I've seen, from the, everything and anything I've ever watched about the guy, I have a hard time looking at the whole body of work and not calling him the greatest. Laker. Not the greatest of all time in basketball. Because I still think Jordan and Wilt both have that.
Well, listen, I mean, like I said, I like Magic Johnson. I like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Like I said in the beginning, I think they have so many great superstars in their history, kind of like the Yankees, unfortunately, that I don't think there is a clear-cut number one. I think, like I said, you got a top five, and whatever order that top five is to you, you're probably right. Jabbar's in there, Magic's in there, Jerry West is in there, Kobe Bryant's in there. You want to put Shaq in there, you want to put Chamberlain in there. You could throw him in there, and I don't really think there's a wrong answer. Jabbar did play the majority of his career, so there's that. Magic, you always look back and think he had one of the greatest careers ever for a point guard. You always think of what could have been if his career didn't get short.
But yeah, he was still on the tail end of the prime of his career. He still had 3-4 years of solid basketball in front of him.
He was 31 or 32 at the time, so absolutely. And then you look at what Kobe is. I think the one thing that I can respect about Kobe is that he started as a high schooler. He came in kind of under the wings of Shaquille. He went through the whole thing when Shaq left about the media making it out that he was the one who ran him out of the town, and would Kobe ever be able to make it his team? And he did it. You can say what you want about he couldn't do it until they brought in Pau Gasol, but he did wind up stepping up to the criticism. He didn't really back down. I think if you're going to pick one player in this generation to compare to Michael Jordan, it has to be Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
I don't think LeBron is there yet. I think he's made some good strides, but it's still Kobe Bryant. And you look, arguably one of the greatest careers of the last 20 years. No question.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, the man has been consistent, and that's the thing about him. He's consistently gotten better. He's consistently perfected his craft. And look, Kobe Bryant will never be known for his assists, okay? He's willing to pass the ball, but he's never going to be known for his assists. No. But what you do know is that Kobe Bryant played both sides of the court. He played offense, he played defense. And he prided himself on both ends. He didn't put one ahead of the other. And when it came down to scoring points, you know what? I remember young Kobe. And all young Kobe wanted to do was shoot the ball.
That's right.
That's all young Kobe wanted to do. And it was, how do you say, sort of fun to watch. Because he was just this young, competitive 18-year-old that was just striving to be as great as he could. And now here we are, 17 years later, 5 NBA ranks. The hardest thing for me to believe is Kobe Bryant only has one NBA MVP.
That is pretty crazy.
That is the hardest thing for me to believe. Over a 17-year span, he only has one NBA MVP. since he's been in the league, you've watched LeBron win it, you've watched Shaq win it, you've watched Nash win it, you've watched Duncan win it, you've watched all these great players win it, and you're like, how the hell does he only have one? It's really hard to believe, but he only has one MVP. That part about his career will always surprise me. I mean, he's played with some great players, but the fact that he is only had one MVP blows my mind.